Hello and welcome to the Eros Mama podcast. I'm so glad you're here. You may have noticed we've had a bit of a rebrand. So, this podcast used to be called Touchy Topics with Megan Lambert. And I have been through a whole identity death and rebirth over the last, say, 6 months to 9 months. Yeah, it's been huge. And with that, it is time to rebrand, relaunch what my offer is. So, in case you're new here, let me bring you up to speed. I just gave birth 6 months ago to our second child, a little baby boy named Latham. He is so cute and so sweet. And I think that at least in my experience and my clients, every time there's a birth, there's also a death. And that has certainly been the case for me. Um, this is our second child. So we also have a almost 3-year-old girl named Lila. And I really thought like I had the hang of motherhood until my second baby was born. And I did in a certain way, but the second baby has just completely re changed who I think I am and what's important to me, and has required a whole new shift of priorities, personality. Yeah, it's been huge. Just the way that having two kids, it's like my heart immediately expanded, but my capacity and my attention and my time and energy has not immediately expanded. It's been slowly expanding over the last 6 months, and um, slowly starting to feel more like I have capacity to think beyond the immediate needs of my immediate family. Because in the early days with the baby, at least is how it's been for me, it's so bodily and so immediate. I'm like, okay, who's eaten, who's pooped, who needs to sleep? Like tending to everyone's basic needs is a full-time job. It is a full-time job and it has consumed all of my attention. But we're just starting to turn a corner. Actually, as I'm recording this week, my oldest is starting at school, quote school, because she's 3. So it's like they just play. It's play group basically. But she's starting at school. It's her second day. And my baby is starting solids, which means he doesn't rely solely on me for breast milk anymore. And in each of these moments, it's like my little ones are taking steps towards independence, however small, but it feels big because each of them in different ways are relying less on me. And with that comes like this grief of like, I love being the entire center of my kids' world, um, but also relief because my goodness, now I have a little bit more space to be here with you, for example, recording a podcast or thinking a bit more about work and supporting clients. And yeah, so there's just like a little bit more personal space I'm feeling in the last couple weeks that has allowed this creative rebirth of my podcast. As well as some of you might know, I'm in the process of writing a book by the same name, Eros Mama. And I also have a mentorship for women who want one-on-one support around retaining their desires through motherhood. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're in this process. I don't know. Let's see, if I'm a butterfly in a cocoon, I don't know if I'm all the way out of the cocoon yet. I think I'm like poking a wing out and like looking out like, hey, world, I see you. I'm still half goo, but I see you. I think that's where we're at right now. It's really interesting to me what a death and rebirth having a child is and how few people are actually talking about that. My last two favorite clients of all time both came to me when they were 3 months, 2 to 3 months postpartum. And they both came to me with a similar feeling of like, I don't really know who I am. Like, I know that I love this little being and I love being a mom, but there's also a whole lot of things that I'm grieving or missing, or like a lot of women have lost connection with their desire and what they want. Because naturally their attention is so absorbed in their little one and what their little one needs and wants that sometimes it's hard for them to think about what they want. And also their relationship had just been through a huge baby bomb. Oh my gosh. talk about some of the hardest times to stay connected is right after the birth of a baby. So that was going on. And then also just, wading through the waters of like sleep deprivation, identity death. What the heck do I do with my time in my life now? How do I get out of survival mode and back into thriving? These are all some of the big questions that we explored. And a lot of it, I think, and you'll see this throughout every episode of my podcast, is embracing the duality, the yes and the bothness of this period of time. So the joy and exquisiteness and soak up all the baby bliss because it goes so fast. Yes. And this is fucking hard. It is hard. It is exhausting. It's a challenge. Sometimes you just want the day to be over, right? And both of those things exist so vividly and so intensely at the same time that it can be a total mind fuck. It really can, because it's like, how can I, as a mother, stretch to have some of the highest highs I've ever had and some of the lowest lows at the same time? And I think that that is just a real question of motherhood. And one of the big things that I've been helping my clients with and myself with is making space for both, right? So not being so lost in the struggle that you're forgetting the exquisite miracle that your body and your baby in this moment is. And also not trying so hard to enjoy every moment and make sure that you really are happy. And meanwhile, you're pushing down all of these harder and more challenging feelings. So can we really expand to include both of these aspects of motherhood and of ourselves? And with that expansion that this podcast is inviting you into is when we become mothers, it's like this whole new archetype is born inside of us. Right? This archetype that is in service to our children, that is thinking about not just us, but like generations to come, that is like maybe more love than you've ever felt. And at the same time, while this archetype is so new and so big in the experience of motherhood, there's also other parts of her, of me, of you, that need to be tended to and loved. Like the maiden is still there. We often say the maiden dies when you become a mother, but she actually doesn't. She's still in there and still a part of you. And can you still create space for her to exist and to get the nourishment of being seen? And you probably, if you have a partner, there's like the partner part of you, the lover, the wife, the girlfriend, right? Is that part of you being tended to? There's your independent creative self. Maybe you're also an entrepreneur or a business person, or not. Maybe you're a domestic goddess. And yeah, so there's all these different committee of characters inside of you. And one of the challenges that I see with mothers and with myself too is, how do you juggle all these characters? How do you make space for all of these different parts of you inside of you with the same amount of time and energy that you've always had before? Suddenly you have more characters inside. And that's a real challenge. And I see it a lot. For example, maybe she's gone totally into motherhood, but now she's like, wait, I miss intimacy with my partner. Like, he doesn't see me as a lover anymore. He just sees me as the mom of his children. Right. And that's its own painful spot. Or maybe she's gone deep into wife and mother, but now is missing work and like her creative or intellectual sides. Because the other thing with motherhood, it's deeply emotional and social. But for me, at least sometimes I'm like, wait, I miss intellectual as well. And there's aspects of motherhood that's intellectual, like, learning a new recipe for baby-led weaning or learning how to handle toddler meltdowns, but it's intellectual in a different way. I'm going to let you in on an inside trigger I just had after my sip of cacao. I got triggered on my date with James the other day because he made this joke. He's like, yeah, people say parenting is the hardest thing you've ever done, but have you tried brain surgery? I'm pretty sure that's harder. And I had such a visceral reaction to that statement because I'm like, What are you talking about? Brain surgery is like 20 minutes of intellectual activity, whereas motherhood is this 24/7 nonstop emotional, social, bodily labor of love. And yeah, I think it just triggered me because something else that I really stand for with my podcast and this book and um, is the importance of motherhood. And for so long, it's been so invisible and dismissed, as have most of the contributions of women. And so I really feel inside of myself and inside of this generation of mothers an invitation to rise up and really value the life-giving work of mothers and to see it as so important, at least as important as all of the intellectual money earning activities that are happening in the world. Right? I don't know about you, but I really grew up, I think, with this implicit bias that income generating activities are more important than mothering activities. And if you've heard me speak before, this might sound like a broken record, but quote, this is implicit patriarchy. These are little spots where we have internalized from the cultural system we live in that the feminine is not as important as the masculine, or the feminine traits, the feminine gifts are not as important as the masculine. And when we talk about patriarchy, sometimes it sounds like the patriarchy out here, which definitely fight the patriarchy out here, intangible things like equal pay and maternity leave and all of that, but also fight the patriarchy in here. And the patriarchy in here is the part of us that's like, motherhood's not as important, or I need to get back to work so that I'm actually doing something of value. I know I've struggled with that particular voice myself. So yeah, I think no matter what you decide to do in terms of work, motherhood, um, it's an invitation to really value your contributions across the board. Okay, bit of a tangent. This is meant to be like a personal life update. Here I am talking about all things patriarchy, motherhood, but it's important because I want you to know like these are some of the themes that you can come to expect in the Eros Mama podcast, as well as in the Eros Mama book and mentorship. Okay, what else am I up to with my little family of four? Me, my husband, James, Lila, and Latham. Some of you know, we live in Bali. Love Bali. It's such a special island and such a special place. And we miss being far from family. I miss being far from family. And we recently spent time in the US, and it became clear to both James and I that like we really have a yearning to be closer to family. So we're exploring a part-time US, part-time Bali lifestyle. We go back and forth on like, do we have two home bases, or is one a home base and one a vacation home? And we're actually looking at houses in California. So we might buy a second home and, rent it out when we're not there, but go back and forth. It feels really exciting and new. Interesting because the town that we're looking at is in the Lake Tahoe area. And that is actually where I was born. And then I moved down to Silicon Valley as a child. But even while I was growing up, I said, I'm going to move back to Lake Tahoe because I love Lake Tahoe. It's beautiful. If you've never been, it's like in the Sierra Nevada mountains. There's snow, there's crystal clear lakes, tons of pine trees, and lots of forests. And I would just love my kids to grow up running through the forest and swimming in the creeks and, seeing bears and wildlife. And that's just really important to me. So I grew up my whole life saying I'm going to go back to Lake Tahoe. But I actually totally forgot about that until recently when we've been talking about getting this second home. My mom reminded me, remember you always said you were going to come back. So it's a funny full circle moment. We haven't found a house yet, but we are looking and exploring and dreaming into it. And it's something that's actually been really apparent with this dream and this desire is like, it can unfold slowly. I think often for me, I like to move fast, right? I get a desire, I act on it, I move quickly. But when it's big desires, especially big desires that impact my whole family system, I'm really seeing the beauty of like nurturing the seedling of desire and tending to it without needing to rush anything. So letting something unfold. So, we've gone a couple times to visit. Next visit, we're going to go and rent a house there for a few weeks and get to know the neighborhoods. And even though I'm holding this desire as true and clear, it doesn't need to come with like this frenzied urgency. And I think sometimes the frenzy urgency that I've had in the past can be a cover up for grief about what the desire will cost, because every dream, every desire comes with a cost, comes with an impact. And when you go slowly, there's more time to be with the impact of the desire. And that can be hard, but also potent. Sometimes I think in the past, I've gone quickly, like, okay, great, we're going to move, let's go. And done a quick exit. And that's almost a way for me to avoid some of the deeper feelings that are associated with that desire. I don't know if that resonates at all with you as you're listening to this, if there's any desires that you have right now that are bubbling up, that maybe feel scary, that will require a certain sacrifice or a cost. And my invitation here is to just keep holding the desire and listening to it and dreaming into it, but also feeling all of the feelings that bubble up alongside of it. Yep. Okay, so that's one big update. Another big update is we are building a space in Bali. This is another thing that's been challenging about this desire to spend more time in California is we're building a huge project in Bali. We're building a space for families to connect with nature and each other, and a space for deep transformation and wellness. Yeah, I say it's where family, nature, and wellness come together. And the property is called Ibu, which means mother. Mother Earth, mother of our family, the mother energy. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. There's a few villas, there's going to be a yoga shala, a wellness space, a playground, a permaculture food forest. I'm imagining like families coming together around the communal kitchen and like walking through the forest to pick toppings for their pizza and cooking it in a pizza oven, and having yoga and workshops in the yoga space, and while the kids play in the playground. And I just have so many beautiful dreams that are connected with this space. And we're about, I'm going to say halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through creating it. It's been such a journey creating this. I've had so many waves of like excitement, dream come true, but also like, oh my God, what if we make a mistake? Is this really the best thing to be doing? Ah! Am I sure that I still want this dream? So I've had so many different moments of that. Right now, I'm in a moment where I'm excited about it because I can start to see like the interiors and what the rooms will look like and what the space will be like. And I'm starting to really feel the vision. We've gone through at many seasons, but the overall arc I would say is like initial excitement and like, yes. And then as we get into it, a muddy middle of, oh my God, what are we doing? This seems so big and so resource consumptive, and it is. We're looking at carbon offsetting it, but it's undeniable that building property is resource consumptive. And so I've grappled with that a lot because I've also had this blooming eco-awareness that's been really close to my heart, and looking at my impact on the world and the resources I'm taking and how I can live in a more sustainable way. So yeah, we've gone through the muddy middle, and now I would say I'm kind of coming out the other side of like excitement again about the project. So yeah, I say all this too because it's like, even when dreams come true and desires come true, it's not always just that, yay, it can have, like, as we were saying before, the full spectrum, the full duality of that. And yeah, the other update is as my awareness around the earth and climate change grows, I feel more and more impetus to act and to support the vision of the world that I want to see. So we've been looking at like, how do we help stop deforestation in Borneo? You may know Borneo is an island in Indonesia where we live, and it is one of the top 3 hotspots of deforestation in the world. And stopping deforestation is one of the biggest things we can do to slow climate change. So that's been a big piece on my heart, is how do we do that? It's so local to us. And I'm very excited. We're actually going to Borneo in February. to go and visit some of these projects. So I can't wait for that. But yeah, I'm really looking at like in all aspects of my life, how do I align my actions more with my values around climate change and sustainability? So, helping my family eat more plant-based, eat less meat, wasting less food, um, recycling, composting, like what else can we do? And we're constantly thinking about like, what more can we do to help the earth? 'Cause I had this feeling like when I became a mother, I'm like, oh my gosh, suddenly I care about future generations in a way I never did because I'm 30 something now. I'm probably going to die in 60 years, maybe, hopefully. Hopefully I get that long. Before I had kids, I'm like, all right, well, I think we'll be okay for 60 years. But now I have kids. I'm like, they're going to be around a lot longer, my kids. And so there's a way I feel like my heart is tied into the future of the planet through becoming a mother. And with that, I just care a lot more about the earth and about regenerating the earth. And um, it's been a little messy because my brand has always been like desire, sensuality, intimacy. And I still so love that and so feel that. And there's this blooming part of me that really cares about the earth and what I can do to take care of the earth. So expect to hear that as well as part of the Eros Mama brand. I say there's actually 4 pillars of the Eros Mama brand. There's your relationship with your body and your body wisdom, your emotions, your gut, what your deeper self is telling you, your relationship with your sex and sensuality and pleasure, your intimate relationship, your partnership, and your ecosystem. So your community, your home, and the earth and the land that is supporting you and your family. And when I am writing the book or doing the podcast or mentoring women, we look at all of those 4 pillars: body, sensuality, relationship, and ecosystem. Because for a mama to thrive, just like a plant, you need all 4 of those things to be in alignment and to be feeling good. So yeah, you can expect all 4 of those. And I'm wondering, just as you're listening to this, if you can relate to any of these themes, if you can relate to maybe this growing awareness of climate change and the impact that has on you or on your heart, let me know. As well as some of these themes around desire and listening to desire and being with desire, both in the exciting beginning, but also the messy middle, and hopefully coming out the other side. Or maybe you can relate to the theme of duality, like being with both the joy and miracle of a moment and the grief and the tenderness of the moment. Yeah, so let me know which of these themes you can relate to. I am so excited for this upcoming season of the Eros Mama podcast. The next few episodes I have in mind are I'm going to share about my second baby's birth story. We had an incredible home birth, so empowering. So I'll share that story. I also plan to do a couple client sessions and record them for the podcast with their consent, of course, so that you can hear what is a real life Eros Mama struggling with and what tools or practices or insights do I help her with. And so maybe you'll get some gold for yourself from those sessions. I'll have some interviews on here and a few more solo episodes. So that's what we have coming up for season 4 or season, I don't know. I lost track of what season we're on. We'll see. This podcast has been through so many cycles and seasons. I'll have to look back and count. But anyway, that's what we're up to now. And I hope that you guys enjoy this podcast. My hope is that it feels like you're just sitting down and having a cup of tea with a friend. And we're sharing our stories together. We're learning from each other. We're getting new insights. And I'm really just feeling the sense of like shared humanity around the chaos and the beauty that is being a mama in these times. Okay. Big hugs to all of you. Leave me a review if you love this podcast. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, drop me a note on Instagram. My Instagram is at Megan D. Lambert, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes as well. Okay, I'll see you on the next episode.